Hey everyone, and welcome. Today I'm going to show you my new Todoist system, which has helped me become much more productive and really feel much calmer and a better sense of prioritization, and has really helped me get rid of that feeling like there's 1,000 things to do that I could never keep up with. Alright, so first let's talk about my last Todoist setup. You've seen the video, I'm going to link it below. Well, that one broke, and I allowed it to break. I really reached that, I guess what I'm going to call the fuck it point. I was doing it for a while, and I was losing the love each week, and I was vaguely aware of that because each week felt more and more like a chore to do my weekly review and keep the system updated. And eventually, I said, forget it, and I let the whole thing break. Now, this time I decided to be comfortable with allowing the system to break, and so what it remained good for was my daily kind of habit items, like journaling, things like that I wanted to remind myself. I had those reminders, that was working. But anything new wasn't really getting in there. And so, again, the system was not really doing its job of organizing my life. And I wasn't really using it in that way. So how did I break the cycle? Something that's really important is I allowed myself to let the system break, and I didn't beat myself up about it. I didn't sit there every day going, hey, you really should have a working system. I just said, okay, it's broken. I don't care enough to fix it right now. Let's see what happens. And the obvious thing happened. I was suffering from being disorganized. I was suffering from always feeling like something was left undone. It was hard for me to shut off my brain. And even when I was looking to be productive, often I would work on something that wasn't that important because I just didn't have everything queued up. And my wife was getting upset because tasks weren't getting done, and she felt like nothing ever moved, and I was getting frustrated. So it was a whole, whack of expected negative things that happen when you're not very organized. I reached a point about halfway through the second brain cohort, probably by absorbing the inspiration of all the people around me and being around all these organized system designers, or maybe aspiring organized system designers. And so I sat down and I said, hey, I need a system. I need something that's going to get me, out of this kind of rut that I've allowed myself to be in. And I really want something now. My ideal was to rebuild this in Rome, because then all my notes and all my tasks would be in one place, and that would be amazing. On the other hand, building a system in Rome would take me hours and probably days, and I'd have to learn all these new behaviors and learn all these new routines, and I still really want to do that. But I had a working but broken Todoist system, and what I realized is that if I wanted a tasking system that works today, and one that I know will work well, it's low risk, I'll get immediate reward, I'll just get off to the races and running, and I can sit down in this one session, and at the end, I will come out with a finished, valuable, useful product, right? That I'll be the user of. That's incredible. Why would I want to turn this into a week-long project that is going to take hours and hours and hours to give me benefit, when really, very concisely, I want to solve my problem of feeling disorganized, and I already know the quick way to do it. So I jumped back into Todoist. I made the decision to get value today, instead of leaving a long open-ended project that would just become another thing that added to my overwhelm and didn't really solve it at all. All right, so with that, many of you have seen the workflow chart that I created about 6 months ago, and I only really made one update, so I'm going to start walking you through that. So we have tasks that come from Marissa. She doesn't use Todoist as much, but from her side she can still put those tasks somewhere where I'll see them, and so they pop up, and eventually I move them to my Todoist inbox. Emails, whenever I feel that my inbox is picking up a few too many tasks and that I won't just be able to quickly kind of triage and handle them, maybe when I hit over 10 or 15 tasks, I'll start sending a lot of the emails to Todoist. So that'll clear out my inbox and just bring them to my Todoist inbox, where I would go to look, even if I want, even if I have a task that I want to work on that's maybe only 10 minutes, often those are email tasks, and so I'd rather be able to look in Todoist for a list of all my 15-minute tasks, then have to go into my inbox and then pop into this other place. So it's nice to centralize. And then for me, we have basically two ways of doing it. One is just typing things into Todoist, which I'm doing more and more because I also have this Google Assistant automation set up with IFTTT, and it works most of the time, but when it doesn't, it's really frustrating. So once it's failed the first time and I don't feel like getting into an argument with my Google Assistant, I'll often just go to writing it. And so through all of those ways, everything ends up in my Todoist inbox right here. And that's really important, right? I have one centralized place where all the tasks go. It's a great start, but it's not enough. I could work out of my inbox, right? It's not a great habit, and it just becomes this messy kind of junk drawer of tasks. And so what occurred to me is, okay, last time I set up my system, I was focused on the weekly review. I figured if I nail the weekly review, everything will work out. I've changed my opinion. What I feel now is that if I nail the daily review, and each day I just make sure that my tasks are scheduled, prioritized, as you can see right here, right? The next step is to add them to a project or area, to prioritize them, and to add any tags that would be useful, and sometimes even add a due date, depending on whether or not it's appropriate. At that point, the task is ready for me. It'll either pop up on the day it's important, it's either in the project where it should be, so I'll see it when I want it, or if it's tagged, often I'll use something like hardware store, so that whenever I go to the hardware store, I can see the tasks across every project that I can purchase in one shot, rather than making a separate trip for every project. Or I have a friend who often enough tasks, intersect with. So then I'll tag my friend's name, and then when I speak to him, I can see every task that's reliant or connected to him, and I can just get those all out. But it allows me to keep them in the original project or area. One really important guiding principle is I always try to avoid moving tasks out of the project or area they belong to. I always want them to keep their original context. To me, that's really important because otherwise I forget why I'm doing them, and I lose track of their value. All right, so with the daily review, why was that more important than the weekly review? The reason is the weekly review was kind of this build-up, and it was easy to say like, forget this thing, I don't want to do it, and then my system broke. The other part was that, sure, I would go through the step of, sorting everything from my inbox once a week, but any task that I needed to do in 2 days, I knew that would break my system and I wouldn't see it. So it really hurt my confidence. And so then I started holding those in my head. And that's where the system actually really started to show cracks and started to deteriorate. So instead, what I've decided on this reboot is I'm going to focus on my daily review. And even if I miss one, the next day I'll get it. So it still means that the system has a good continuity. Now, if I don't do my weekly review, that means I'm not steering the ship as well, right? I'm going to keep doing tasks based on last week's assumptions and last week's priorities. So when I go each day and feel that I'm really losing my connection to reality, that'll prompt a weekly review. Even if I don't do it on the Sunday, maybe I'll take an extra 20 minutes on the Tuesday morning to reorient myself. So basically, that daily habit not only maintains the system and makes it much more effective because it doesn't undermine my confidence in seeing my tasks that I leave for myself, which means that I can capture everything that's really important, but it also actually drives me to do the weekly routine because then I eventually say, hey, I'm losing meaning, I'm losing orientation, so now I need this higher level review to help guide me. And so, at least for my personality and way of thinking, I find that's really helpful. And so there we go. Once I do the sorting, it either goes into a backlog or it goes into my up next queue, meaning I want to actually work on that task now, or it goes into a future day, meaning, hey, I'm going to do this on Tuesday. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't like assigning due dates to tasks unless it's really necessary, because I don't like to show up on Tuesday and find that I have 10 tasks that I've left for myself and it no longer makes sense and I don't feel like doing them. The flip side is with the daily review, you can actually catch those and make the decision at the beginning of the day, hey, you know what, forget it, it's a Thursday task. But it still creates this cycle of constantly kicking our tasks down the road, which isn't that motivating. So I try to only really schedule daily tasks that I know I will definitely do that day so it can be a success. And otherwise, I'll put it in the queue if it's not that important. Then I use a filter, you type a query to drive the filter, something like that. I think the feature name is called filter, but basically you do type in a query and it pulls up a list of tasks. So I'm going to show all of that to you now. And finally, I have a widget on Android. Congratulations, iOS people. You can now put widgets on your desktop, like your phone screen, not just on a separate screen from what I understand. So that'll be really useful too. I put this on my main phone screen, so when I open my phone, the first thing I'm facing is what I have to do, which I hope is going to keep me from drifting off into social media as easily. Okay, so with that, let us go over to my Todoist setup. We will start at the inbox. So I have 2 tasks in here because I've already gone through my inbox actually yesterday, and I haven't added anything new. What I did throw in is this demo task. So let me show you. What I said is normally I would add, first of all, so this is a demo task. This is something I want to work on next. So I'm going to add the tag up next. I'm not going to add a date, let's say. If I wanted to, Todoist lets me just type in like Sunday or today. But I won't do that for now. This is really important. It's really important because I'm literally talking to you about it now. So let's call it a P1. I gotta deal with this demo task, right? And then the other thing is I could add tags. So I could, if this were like a hardware store thing, I could do that. In this case, I don't need it. But I will add it to the project. Actually, I'll add it to an area, which is the flow. Probably I should add this to a project that is today's newsletter. But anyways, just for demo, here it is. So when I hit enter, that's going to disappear from my inbox. There's this other task here. It's rare that I leave something in my inbox, but this is literally an email where I went to purchase something and then jumped out of the checkout screen, hoping that they'd send me a coupon. So I'm waiting to action this any day, and just didn't feel like assigning it to a day actually. All right. So that was step 1 of my daily process, right? I take anything in my inbox and then I put it where it needs to be. Then what I'm going to do is take a look at this query, which I've created and I've favorited, and this is my tasks. So the first section is today. Actually, the first section is overdue, but there's nothing in overdue, so that section disappears. The next section is today. And so I have to book a call that's coming up, and I wanted to do that today. I want to call my little brother. I have a daily reminder to tell my wife I love her, and you'd think that this becomes like not sincere at some point, but it really is a fantastic thing. I recommend it. I have a review of my Todoist today, which I'm going to do next, right? And so you see everything is in priority order, and so that's a really nice feature. If there was a time set, that would actually pop to the top. And so after the things that I have today is things that are in progress. So I have a tag called in progress, and that's how I'm handling statuses right now. As many of you know, Todoist is now offering a Kanban board. I don't think it works for filters or for queries yet, but basically the sections become the columns in the Kanban board. So here, what is already in progress? I have a few tasks, and the reason I do this is because before I go and pull new tasks off of my up next pile, I really want to make sure that I'm not opening 100 things. So I'd rather close something that's already started. And here's the logic, and it's basic agile thinking. If I close something I'm working on, I get some value out of it, right? Or else I probably wouldn't be working on it. If I start a new thing, I'm actually creating more work and more things to worry about all at once, and I'm not getting value out of starting that new thing until I close something. So one of the Kanban concepts is have a work in progress limit. And while I don't have a formal one, I do try to make sure that I am mindful of what I'm already working on before I start something new. All right, up next, tasks that are blocked or waiting on someone. I was going to change the name of that tag, but I haven't yet. And so these are just tasks that are, I'm waiting on someone else. I was debating which one I would put first, but for now, this is the order. And then up next. So here are all the things that I want to work on after I deal with these. Once again, each section is in priority order. And I know my face balloon in the bottom left is kind of blocking some of these tasks. But basically, that's it. And oh man, I wish I hadn't put John's number in there. Call John if you want a really good mechanic. No, I'm probably gonna have to blur that out. So, anyways, this is the fundamental setup. Every day, right? I'll go through my inbox, make sure that all of the tasks are lined up properly, sent to the right place, and that's it. They pop up on this query, so it's really beautiful. Now I'm gonna move my head over because it's blocking my project list. And what I want to show you is the weekly review, which I've kept really simple. Now, I found that doing a weekly review of my notes and my Todoist it was a bit much, and I didn't want to do it. And I'm a very task-oriented person rather than a note-oriented person, so I decided to start with tasks. And so that's why we're focusing here today. All of my notes and everything are pretty much in Rome, just by the way. So that's just such a completely separate process. And while it seemed like a good idea to mix the two together, I'm actually really happy to be mastering them independently. So I would almost recommend this if you start to find that combining your notes and your tasks together is a bit maybe overwhelming or a heavy lift, right? We want to avoid heavy lifts. We want to just increment and iterate our way to the goal. In my case, as it always is, the goal is how do we work in a way that really feels fun and somewhat effortless, where every day feels like a vacation, where we're engaging our curiosity and our passion, not just, cranking out tasks. And so in this way, I set up the most important and meaningful things, and then I pick the ones that I really feel like doing that day. So if we go to the weekly, it's really simple. I have my project list here. Some have due dates, some don't. Another way to create a due date is to, within the project, just add a task with the due date and the project goal at the top. I don't really use that, but it is another way. And that way you can schedule the task. So each week what I'll do is just drag the projects into the order of importance. Normally the top 5 or 6 are what I'm going to put my energy into. And not all of those need to be intentional. Normally like 3 through 6 roughly end up being passive things that are in the back of my mind, and 1 through 3 are things that I really want to drive and be more actively engaged in. So I will basically drag these into the order, like, oh, we have the new dog coming, so that's like really important, so this needs to be top of mind because that's coming up, and we need to dog-proof the place, etc. So then I would go through all of my projects and just put them in the order of importance. This is something that Tiago does as well. And then the next change that I've made, I'm trying to remember in my last video if I even had a project list. I think I buried them in my areas, and while areas are a good place for someday projects, I don't find they're great to actually run our projects day to day. I like to surface the list so I can put them in this order. All right, so that's projects. Now if I close that, we take a look at areas. Areas I used to have split into 3 focuses, and I have a video that shows how to derive our projects and our areas and just to figure out how they connect. And I'll add the link to that one also in the video description. But what I've done this time is rather than having them categorically separated, which was nice, instead, once again, I've put things in priority order. So there's only so many things I can focus on each week, and what you're almost looking at is like a list of what's important to me right now, and what areas of my life I feel need the most attention. And once again, each week I can adjust this. I find that areas change less than projects in terms of their order, but the weekly review is something like that. I just go and make sure that all of my priorities are kind of set in the right order, and then I'll start going through them and just tagging projects into up next or giving them a date. So, we're trying to close out our company here, the smoothie machine company I've mentioned before. So if I take a look at that, we have some tax payments. We're not going to do that yet. Get partnership transfer docs from lawyer. That's still blocked. This actually, I think I can start to take steps on. We're going to move me again out of the way. So then I would say up next, right? And then let's give it a priority because it is a bit important as I'm bringing this in. So this was not that important before, but now it's a P2, right? It's like a second order priority. So there it is. And now that's going to show up in my up next for the week. And I would just, oh yeah, we did that. Okay. So basically I would just go through all of my projects and see how many items do I want to work on this week. Because I'm prioritizing things, it doesn't matter if I add in a few too many, even though I'm a bit of a completionist and I love the idea of an empty list. What I find is really important is just making sure that we prioritize well. And if we always do the most important things, and if we don't open too many tasks, then life takes on a nice sense of flow, and things just move. It's really important for our energy, for our level of give a shit, for our motivation and engagement. It's really important that we get a reward from the project, and that means an energy reward. So when we work on something, if we make it a 6-month project that delivers no value until the end, let's say if I had decided to set up my to-dos in Rome this time, it would have taken me a week or two to get to the value point probably, and maybe I would have run out of energy before then and fallen back into my rut. Because I took this quick first step that I knew was accessible, I knew it was low risk, I knew it wasn't a heavy lift, and I knew that the day I had the energy to do it, I was going to be able to get it done and get value from it. It made all the difference in the world. So I encourage you to take this approach to your to-dos, to your projects, and think, 1, how can I limit the number of things I'm working on at one time, or at least bring visibility to them? You don't need a hard limit, but it is really important to make sure you're aware of it. The project list on its own is a really valuable way to do this. Did you see how many projects I had? I have like 20 projects. So, great. Now I know that. Now I know that I can only focus on like 3 or 4. And when I'm spending energy on the ones that are low down the list, it also reminds me that the best I'm going to be able to do, very likely, is capture a few notes, advance the ideas, maybe add a couple of tasks to remind me the next time I look at it what I want to do. But especially for projects low down on the list, I may not look at those for another month. You know, I might add one task or one idea or one note and not look at it for a month. I need to make it really easy to ramp back up into that. By creating our project list, we have buckets where we can start throwing all of our ideas. And as I think Tiago said, tasks are not obligations, they're opportunities. One example is when we were having internet issues, and it was ongoing, right? So I'd try something and then it would work for a bit, then I'd have issues, I'd have to fix something else. And so if I just came back to that task with, oh, what issue am I having now? Let's do a Google search. What do the first responses say? Let's try it. I would end up wasting my time and going down rabbit holes and having 40 tabs open. And I would get like, oh, this problem is leading to this problem, is leading to this problem. And it wasn't productive. Instead, what I started doing is whenever I had an idea, whenever I had a moment, I would think about a next possible solution. And I just throw that task in the project. And so when I said, hey, I have time to sit down now and think about this project, I had all my ideas, all of my options for next routes there. And often they were much easier and simpler solutions than the ones that I thought of in the instant when I was just getting pulled into the task and kind of tunnel vision. So to wrap it all up, it's really important to have a list of all the projects you're working on. That's not enough because projects are made up of many tasks. I would define a project as really anything that's going to take more than 1 or 2 work sessions to complete. You don't want to take a task and kick it along your work week and then kick it along for 2 months. You want to complete tasks and make steps forward. So, have all of your projects laid out. Start throwing your tasks, your ideas, gathering notes, right? We've learned a lot of this for those of you who are in second brain, especially. This isn't too new. Start gathering everything, right? Put all of your projects in order, prioritize them. Your life areas is a good idea to put in order as well. Build a system, like the one I've showed you. It didn't take a lot of effort to build this. Build a system where each day or every 2 days, you can really just look over your tasks and see what needs to be done. Highlight what's already in progress so that you can finish it rather than starting new things. Try to avoid bombarding yourself or your future self with scheduled tasks on any given day, unless that's really how you work, but just be mindful of it. And from there, you're off to the races. You just need to make sure that it's a system that you can trust, and that when you put something into it, you know that you're going to be able to get it out at the right time, that it won't fall through the cracks. The last thing I want to just refocus us on, and I've spoken about it a whole lot, is when you go about building things, make sure that you get your energy back. Make sure that you work on something that provides value relatively quickly, right? It doesn't have to be the whole project. The whole project can be made up of individually valuable pieces. By working on individually valuable pieces, we invest energy into the project, and that comes back to us when we deliver it and we get to use it, or someone else gets to use it. If we make things heavy lifts that take months and months before any energy comes back to us, we're very likely to run out of energy, get distracted, and work on something else. A well-structured to-do system like this one is one of your greatest allies in that battle. So, last thoughts are, reach out to me if you have any questions. You can comment below, whether you're watching this on my website on mitchschwartz.co, or if you're watching this from YouTube. Second, you can subscribe on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I've added a button to the bottom right. No, bottom. You can figure out which side the right is. To the bottom right that says subscribe. If not, I'm going to be adding it. And then you can also go to mitchschwartz.co. There'll be a link in the description to sign up for notifications when I make these new videos. Sign up for my newsletter where I send out all sorts of advice like this, and also focus on the internal game that leads us to be very productive and happy and basically work each day like we're on vacation. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.